Now to start off this video, I want to give a massive shout out to Enter Oblivion for pointing out that I didn't go too much in depth with the grading system in the Grate Warframe review. I absolutely adore criticism. I value it very deeply, and I take every single thing that you may criticize me to heart. So if any of you do feel discouraged, if you see a problem with my content, I wholeheartedly beg you to just point it out in the comments below, because I'm the sort of guy who loves it. I mean, you can't exactly dish out criticism if you can't learn to take it now, can you? Good evening, welcome to the Urban Space Zone. I'm your host as always, the Urban Spaceman. And I made a couple of mistakes in the first episode of the Grate Warframe review. The first one was the grading itself and how this is all graded. And instead of having the appearance of a Warframe affect the overall rating, it will probably just be its own thing, as well as the acquisition, that I somehow forgot to mention in the first review. And to go more in depth on how I'm grading these Warframes, we will look at the stats and the abilities of Warframe and come to a conclusion based on those two factors, giving it a grading between 1 and 10, with 1 of course being the worst, and 10 being the greatest. And like I said in my Revenant review, if he got any significant change, I would regrade him. And oh boy, did he. Along with the Nezha rework, which I'll most likely be reviewing next. And it's like almost all of my complaints were answered. Almost. And Thrall wasn't touched up too much, but was given something extra, as well as synergy with Danse Macabre. After Thrall's die, the previous stationary pillars that would spawn now emit enemy-seeking projectiles, which mainly do impact damage, from the looks of things. So we're obviously better against Corpus, not the best against armoured units like the Grineer. This change may be insignificant to some, and it might not give you the amount of damage that you're looking for, but it's a first ability, it's justifiable. But it also does a lot more than that. Especially when you use Danse Macabre. On the pillars that the Thralls leave behind, once you use Danse Macabre, they explode, dealing its damage on a slightly bigger radius. And Mesmer Skin was a strange ability. It tried to be like Warding Halo in Iron Skin with a really bad gimmick tied to it. Single use charges every hit and being able to use Enthrall with no added cost. All at the sacrifice of it to use ability, because you couldn't really recast it before. Once you activated the ability, you needed to dart your eyes to the bottom right of the screen every now and again just to see if you had charges left, and I'm proud to say that that's no longer the case. And since this change also came with Nezha's rework, all 3 abilities, Mesmer Skin, Iron Skin, and Warding Halo, are all unique. And now we've essentially been given an inherent iron shrapnel for this ability, allowing you to recast it whenever you want. This is an incredible change and brings a lot more practicality to Revenant as a whole, because no one really wants to be darting their eyes to the bottom of the screen just to see how many more hits they can take. They'd rather press that button and just put on their Mesmer Skin rather than just have to worry about how many charges they have left. It now makes it all the more different than the other 2 abilities it's based on, and is a lot more convenient to use now, but that's not where it ends, no. Reeve is now where this frame shines, to a degree, and is the change I, personally, am most excited about, because most of my quarrels with this ability were solved and then some. My original complaint was its energy cost, which in hindsight seemed a bit nitpicky. I mean, I was thinking to myself whether I should leave that complaint in the video, whether it was a valid complaint, but I'm really glad I did point it out because I never really saw anyone point it out, on YouTube at least. It was probably a very big thing in the forums. So I thought it needed to be pointed out. And to my surprise, they lowered the cost from 75 energy all the way down to 50 energy. But they didn't just do that, no. They didn't just adjust the base cost. When you're using Danse Macabre, the energy goes down even further. Given that Reeve is a very consistent way to move you during Danse Macabre, it's a very vital part to playing this frame, and it's fun as hell. But we got a change that took the already low 50 energy to 25, and I really don't need to tell you how needed this change was. It makes the frame all the more better. And on top of that, you're given full immunity when you're using this ability, and if you happen to Reeve your Thralls while Mesmer Skin is active, you will regain a charge, adding even more synergy onto Revenant. But if you Reeve your allies, it will give them protective energy, which is a neat bonus, in all honesty. But most of all, you're not locked into a single axis when you press number 3. Thank God. You can move the reticle, and the last place that you faced before the ability activates is where you'll move towards. Now, don't get me wrong, it still ain't the best movement. I'm really happy with these changes so far. And Danse Macabre is still the same. But I want to talk about the nerf it got. From 12.5 energy per second to 20 energy per second. More in depth, because yeah, it is really detrimental. I can see how a lot of people didn't like this change. And the timing of it wasn't really the best as well, because Revenant wasn't really in a good place when he got this change. I mean, the only other change he got was to his Thralls, and I think it was to his Reeve, where it was revamped and didn't look as buggy and shit. But when this nerf hit, everyone made a video on it, everyone was totally turned off by Revenant, and in my opinion, it doesn't really make him trash. I don't see what the big deal is in my opinion. Yes, it's a big change, but it is easy to say that now, considering that all of his abilities have been retouched and are now in a much better position. When he was in his previous state, I can see what all the commotion was about, but still, he did benefit most from a max efficiency build. That's the most practical build for him in my opinion. And it doesn't mean this frame's trash by any regard. The nerf did put a lot of people off this frame, because Danse Macabre, at that point in time, was his only saving grace. But did you really expect it not to get nerfed? A powerful ability that can adapt to damage. And compared to these changes that we've got, I think this is a really good trade-off, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Because before, most of his abilities were just lackluster, and like I said, Danse Macabre was the only thing saving this Warframe. But now things have changed, and most of his abilities have a lot more value than they used to, making him a more refined and well-rounded Warframe. And yeah, my two main complaints, shield gating and energy regeneration, weren't addressed, but looking back in hindsight, it was rather unfair of me to let other factors such as these affect what grading this Warframe got, when in all reality, the Warframe wasn't the main problem. For the most part, at least as far as shield gating's concerned. And I feel like I needed to make this video to commend DE on fixing this Warframe, because just as much as we bash them for fucking up most times, we should praise them when they've done something really good, and they deserve a fair few pats in the back with a measure rework alone if you ask me, and then some with the Revenant changes. So, good job DE, you ultimately turned a very lackluster frame into something that's worth using now, and is, in my opinion, pretty fun. More fun than he was. You can still argue that abilities like in Thrall may not have too much value still, but you can't argue that the other three abilities are what bring this Warframe up to a higher standard than before now. And it's not just his 4, it ain't just Danse Macabre that's good now, it's almost everything in the package. So, my final conclusion for his Warframe? Revenant is in a much better place now than he was before. His first 3 abilities were given a lot more this time around, making him valuable for more than just spinning like the magic bloody roundabout. And nobody can really argue that the more synergy this frame has, and the more incentive people have to using his 3 abilities, is a really, really damn good thing. So, what's his new rating? Well, before I gave him a 7, which after a while of thinking, I would change that original score to a 6. I was mainly influenced by the appearance of this Warframe, which I've taken that out of the grading now, and he got a 6 out of 10 back then. But now, that's changed. Given everything that I've brought to the table, he now gets a solid 8 Grates out of 10. And if you're looking for a Warframe which lets you have fun and does a lot of damage in the process, whilst also making you invincible for a short period of time, then you'll definitely find a lot of value in this frame. A lot more than before, trust me. So anyways, this is the Urban Spaceman. Like if you liked the video, dislike if you didn't. Subscribe to be part of the Conscious Zone, and click that notification bell to become a part of the Hierarchy Club, and to be called to action whenever I upload. So anyways, this is the Urban Spaceman, I'll catch you later. Goodbye.